Senator Serino, thanks so much for being here on New York Now this week.
Thank you, Dan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, anytime. So this week we had the second hearing on the state's handling of nursing homes. Last week we had the first hearing. We've heard a lot of testimony. This week we were talking before and you said 13 hours of testimony, several hours the week before. Have we learned anything that you think could be used, that could have been used to help prevent the 6,000 plus deaths that happened that were linked to nursing homes during the COVID-19 crisis?
Well, we still didn't get a lot of the answers that we were looking for. Unfortunately, the health commissioner in the governor's office was only there. They were there last week and not this week. And when we asked questions, because we want to know how were these decisions made? A simple question, so we can know what went wrong and moving forward, how we could correct it. And we owe that to the parents, siblings, loved ones of all these people that died in the facilities.
I'm surprised, honestly, that the health commissioner didn't show up for the second hearing. I don't know whether he was invited or not. I don't really know what was behind that. But if you had the opportunity to go for a second round of questioning, what would you ask him? What would you want to know? I mean, as you said, he was only there for 2 hours last week, during last week's hearing. So I have to assume there were some questions that didn't get posed to him that you think should have.
Well, even some of the questions that I asked him, Dan, I said, who, made these decisions, out of your group? And he said, well, I have 1,500 people. And, he was being very evasive. And even if the governor would have said, or the health commissioner, listen, we made some mistakes. Let's move forward. Let's work together to make things better. I had come up with some ideas, like with the specialty care centers. I even talked to the Department of Health about it. We had a conversation. They never, ever answered me with regard to like my ideas that we would have, just specific places. They could be regional and they would be specifically for COVID patients. They would get more funding, have just dedicated work staff. Not an answer at all, Dan. That's terrible.
Something that surprised me about the hearings was that at the start of it, I think it was Senator Tom O'Mara that mentioned that the Democrats who control both houses of the legislature didn't give Republicans the chance to call witnesses or assist in any subpoena power. And I'm wondering, if you were in the majority, is there anything that you would want to subpoena or any witnesses that you were particularly interested in hearing from that didn't show up? In other words, if you had the power, how would you use it?
We should use the subpoena power, and the legislature dropped the ball with that. They should have done that. So we were, when somebody is subpoenaed, there are very specific questions. Like, you can't just say there's 1,500 people, right? They want to know who made those decisions. Why were those decisions made? And those are the questions and answers that we did not receive through the first testimony when the health commissioner and the governor's office was there.
So looking forward, I know that the hearing was just this week. We had the hearing last week. Do you think there's anything the legislature could do moving forward if we do have another spike in cases, or, God forbid, we have another disease that spreads like this in the state? Is there anything the legislature could do, in your opinion, to prevent something like this from happening again, looking specifically at nursing homes, of course?
We need to have specialty centers, the specialty care centers. And I think a couple people had, people that were testifying had mentioned that too, that if we had those specialty centers, they would be an answer, because the people would be quarantined in that area along with the staff. The staff would just work specifically for the COVID-related patients. We also know that we need PPE. The nursing homes were like an afterthought. They didn't get the proper PPE that they needed. And we have to invest in staff also, besides the PPE. We had ideas even for grants to hire staff for people that had lost their jobs that might have worked in hospitality, even getting a couple people in a nursing home to answer the phone, to talk to people about their loved ones. Over and over, we've heard time and again, no communication. People just didn't know what was happening with their loved ones. Can you imagine? I mean, I think of me with my mom. I would be devastated.
Me too. And I'm really interested to see, again, it's early, but I'm really interested to see what comes out of the hearings, whether it's legislation, whether it's a deeper probe. I just have no idea. So we'll be watching. Senator Sue Serino, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank